March meetings of the Brattleboro Town School Board. Obviously, there is a big topic people are interested in tonight. We're going to just introduce ourselves here and then turn the meeting for a little while over to Crowell Lot of the Parks Department. I'm Margaret Atkinson, I'm chair of the school board.
I'm Mark Truian, I'm the vice chair of the school board.
James Swanson.
Jill Stahl-Tyler, also member of the school board.
I'm Ron Staley, superintendent of schools, and I'll announce now that I have to leave at 6 o'clock to be at another meeting at the high school. It will have nothing to do with the conversation at 6 o'clock. That causes me to leave. And Jane, could you just circulate a...
Yeah, there's a paper going around, if you could all sign that. The names.
James Swanson, our lovely board recorder, and here in the front row, the principals of the 3 elementary schools. And if you stick around the meeting, you get to hear them talk too. So. We're going to get up and move, and Carol, whenever you're ready.
Take them all, say that's fire.
Good evening. Certainly you're not here to talk to me tonight and see what I have to say. My name is Crowell Lot. I'm the Recreation Parks Director for the town of Brattleboro. What we have before you this evening is I want to turn the show over to our design firm, ASD Stantec. We have Mike McIntyre, who's the principal of that organization, who's going to walk you through the process that BASIC and the Recreation and Parks Department went through to get us at this point with the design for the Crowell Lot for the skate park. So I'm not the expert here. I'm going to turn it over to the expert, and I'm going to help him set up some of this stuff behind me. But like I said, he's going to walk you through the process that we took, holding 3 different public meetings to gather input on the design of the Crowell Lot. So with that said, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Sure. Make sure that's focused. Can everyone see that okay? Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Mike McIntyre. I'm going to give a brief overview of the process that went through with working with BASIC and the town. Initially, we had received this concept, which showed about a 14,000 square foot placeholder for the skate park, kind of the limit of work line, offsets for trees, and some of the design intent for the project. I apologize if I lost my voice. Ironically, it happened right before I'm presenting. With that, I'm going to go over here. That way I'm not turning my back to everybody. Initially, one of the first studies we looked at is off of the existing layout. We're kind of looking at the pedestrian circulation, sight lines into the park, and really breaking down the anatomy of this park. What's going to be more flat, urban, wheel-friendly environments with a lot of low elements into the front of the area, with kind of the bowl areas. And this initial diagram kind of showed from the first public meeting what we kind of defined as the skate plaza or wheel-friendly plaza area, which might mimic more of a downtown urban area, not a bunch of modular ramps or bowls. And then towards the back, you might have more of the bowl areas. But on the front end, it might be a little bit more of an urban plaza feel to it. So with that, in the first meeting, we came up with a couple concepts that were not really the design, but they were used for a reaction. So everybody could tell us what they like, what they don't like, what's fitting, what's not, what needs to be set back, et cetera. So kind of inspired in that initial concept, we had a point of connection for a pedestrian pathway through here. This was more of an artistic plaza with a couple rain garden areas to collect the water. Then we put the bowls towards the back. Then we came up with another concept that was a little bit more broken out with the flow area towards the back. And from that first meeting, we talked about the elements that we liked and didn't like with the skate park committee. And then started refining things a little bit more. People were talking about adding some seating, maybe adding pedestrian pathways around the backside. And then other discussions came in. Well, what about the rest of the park? Where's the playground going to go? What about pathways, connections, sight lines? What about all these other issues? even though it wasn't in our scope, we thought it was really important to address and kind of look at this whole park as a connecting network and a system. So it kind of evolved to this more of a refined concept from the end users, the skaters, what they liked in terms of features. And then it transcended into, well, what would this look like kind of outside our scope if the playground area is relocated, swing set, there's the existing basketball court, and then maybe there could be eventually, which is not in our scope, but a suggestive idea to the school board that maybe someday there could be a pathway with some exercise and fitness stations, you know, through the space. Then we kind of looked at the circulation studies for there and then the size of this skate park, which is slowly became more of a park you could skate in and not something that was so much of a skate park. Then we started looking at some of the existing tree root zones, offset zones. Then we started getting pretty close to some of the existing trees and decided that we need to look at reconfiguring the park. But before we did that, we wanted to start to create some more 3D images of what this park might look like from the point of entry, looking through where there's a lot of more low-profile elements with the bowls set in the background. And these are more diagrammatic images for the skateboarders and bikers and those that wanted to utilize the facility to really get into the elements, the features, and some of the unique ideas we had for drainage for the bioswales. So this was looking at a plan. And yeah, we had some issues where the seating area probably wasn't the best location as we started to get close to some spruce trees. Then we started to reconfigure the park more. And this is from our January meeting. Then we started to look at, well, what if we brought the park back where initially it was connecting through here to the sidewalk, taking out a couple trees, let's keep those, and kind of bottleneck the design and make it a little bit more narrow, get a little more offsets, and then kind of define a little bit more where the drainage areas were going to go and the planter areas on the inside of the park. Then we started to put a little bit more contextual to some of the existing trees. This is by no means, you know, the playground or whatever. It was just, I think, one of the initial plans of where the future playground was going to go. One of the questions came up is, what was the existing footprint versus what is the new footprint? The red zone represents the previous concept around 14,000 square feet. So you can see this was the initial footprint that was laid out on the park. Then a little bit of the blue. I apologize if it's a little bit hard to see how this kind of cuts through here. Can everybody kind of see the little bit of the differential and this is the new park right here. So this was kind of the new cutout area. So we didn't, so we have to take out a few chunks. So we're around 11,000 if you cut out some of the landscape areas, less than 11,000 square feet for the new footprint. Then we started looking at, you know, across the street, keeping those. These were the trees that we were inhibiting on the earlier designs. So we're just looking at across the street, those existing trees. The low profile, try to keep a lot of the elements. This is an 18-inch high bench, 18-inch 2-foot, 3-foot grind benches, and then setting the park back into the distance. So that's as far as we've got so far with the design concept. I think we got a general consensus from the end users, the basic group on the direction of the design, some suggestive ideas for a future master plan in the park, and some of the new configurations, old versus previous proposed at the 14,000 square feet.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I don't have any questions about the design. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit further. So I recognize some of you as having been here a few years ago when we first came and brought this to us. How many people now were part of that? Lots, good. Because I recall you came and brought the presentation described the process where you went and looked at a bunch of sites and pretty much illuminated them and came up with this one as the best site. And then a couple weeks ago, I read the Selectboard member said that, well, in fact, he had selected the site. And so I guess my question is, which of those things is true?
I started on this in 1997. So I would say the part that's true is we went through all these other processes, all the other sites. We went through Memorial Park, and we were told no, and that was in the early 90s, or early 2000s. We thought about Elm Street. That has a bunch of issues. One is it's floodplain. Number two is if you paid attention to any of the things that have been going on in that area, you have a huge cost in mitigating the ground underneath it. It's all contaminated. Everybody who's built there has had problems. So that site was eliminated. We checked out the waterfront, coal tar. So we weren't allowed there. Then when we finally came across our spot, okay, we thought was going to be down on Route 30, and that was all voted on and everything. It ended up not falling through there for other reasons. And that's when the town came to us and said, we have a location, would you guys be willing to take this location if it's approved by the school board? We said yes, we liked it. It was actually, in our opinion, a good location. And that's what BASIC took. Now, you got to remember, BASIC was started by the Selectboard. There were some of us in here that were long before BASIC ever started, and I'm one of them. I started this project in '97. I was on the Selectboard. We couldn't go anywhere. So what we did do was we put it inside the youth center, the teen center, so that we had a nice little spot. At the time, it was called the Brattleboro Youth Center, I think.
Brattleboro Teen Center.
It's Teen Center, okay? But that had its restrictions. It's indoors and you could only be 18 and under. So we still wanted to go somewhere else, and it took an awful long time to get here. But if I answered your question, the Select Board came to us with a possible, or I don't know if it was a Select Board, if it was Carol or Article.
I'll take
But I
it.
just wanted the details of that, just so that it was out there and really clear, and that was cleared up.
Yeah.
Karen. Yeah, so just clarification and take off from where Daryl left off. The committee, as basic as they first got started, was not a town ad hoc committee. They were an independent group that was researching areas to have a skate park. Then once the select board made the decision that this is where we would like to see a skate park go, then the basic committee that was there, they had an opportunity to apply to the select board, and that's when the ad hoc committee was put in place and the site was determined. And then they had the mission of coming up with a design and raising the funds.
Yeah, the rest of that I'm familiar with.
Right, so I
It's
just
just,
wanted,
it got, 2 weeks ago, it got different, and I just needed to know why.
yeah, so that's really the difference between when this committee became an ad hoc committee of the town and the site being chosen and the work that they did prior to being a town committee.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions, and I asked Mike to put the overall plan of the location, Crowell Park there. As part of the lease, I'll just read through the lease. Any relocation of the play structure shall be paid for and completed prior to use of the leased premises of the skate plaza. It is also understood that the fundraising for the skate plaza will include the funds in which to pay for any necessary relocation or replacement of the swings. So we're assuming with this design, which is very similar to the original design back in, I don't know, 2 years ago, that the play structure would have to be, a new play structure would have to be put in there.
Right. The structure that's there now, if it was left there, it's in great condition.
Right.
But it's already been moved once.
Right.
It's been moved from here when we had the West Brattleboro Nursery School, and then it got moved down to Crowell Lot where there was the donation that they donated back to the town. So the structure has been moved once, so to remove that structure again and move it across, we have been advised by the playground manufacturers as well as our insurance company. That's not a wise decision. So that, where the site of the skate park is, it affects the play structure and it would need to be moved.
So that's understood that the cost for that new structure is part of the plans.
Along with the new structure and the swings.
This one, okay. Then there was a mediated agreement back in February 2012, and there's 2 points that I think the board should be aware of. One, Basic agrees to reduce the size of the project by approximately 1,000 square feet. Has that been entered into the
That was
plans?
the slide that was difficult to show, difficult to see,
Yeah.
but you also have it on.
Yeah, I apologize. I got it on a board as well for a little more clarification. The pink or kind of reddish previous concept was around 14,000 square feet. The reduced footprint for the project is 11,000 square feet, and then with the cutout landscape areas with a new green drainage approach is a little bit less than.
Right. And then the other was an acoustic issue. Basic shall incorporate an acoustic plan, which may include but not limited to berm, solid wood fence, not to exceed 6 feet on the Union Hill area of the park. That was Margaret's question.
Yeah. Since the last meeting, a little bit of more clarification. I apologize, it's so far away. But this is called out here, the solid wooden fence that goes, along the perimeter here. And this would be the 3-foot berm with planting and screen buffering on the back side of the fence. So there would be intent of a 5-foot solid, not picket or a split rail.
Where is it exactly? I don't understand what I'm looking
From the Union Hills, here's Union Hills, here's the slope, here's the skate park, here's Western Ave. Right along the entire length of the skate park and up there will be a solid wood 5-foot fence. And behind it would be the 3-foot berming. With additional plant materials coming up to extend.
So what's there now between Union Hill?
It's grass and a split rail fence. Open.
So there's a retaining wall.
Yes, there
It
is.
the retaining
Yes.
wall, yeah.
No, there's a decorative stone wall.
I think he's right to the wall across.
I think that's at a lower level. Yeah.
So then, I just want to clarify the school board's role in the process, and I'm going to read again from the lease, and then probably after this, you probably want to open it up for questions or comments. So the town, the leasee shall provide to the leaseor all design plans for the park for review by the leaseor. Leaseor shall have final approval of location and design of the skate plaza on the premises. And so, there's been an ongoing review of the plans to the school board, but now you're at a point where you want final approval of these plans. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So just a clarifying question, because I think the thing that sometimes is it's been confusing to me, is that there's a solid plan and design for the wheel-friendly skate area, and the sound mitigation plan, and there's a concept of where the playground and the play structure is generally going to be in the park. The thing that is, to me, a bit concerning is that there's all this other sort of concept pathway in which currently there's no plans to build and no funding for. And there's been a lot of talk about, landscaping, removal of the hedge in front of the park, and, I know that in past practice, when the Parks Department wants to do some major changes to Crowell Lot, there's an ongoing discussion with us. And so, what are we, tonight, we're approving the skate park plan and the general location of that play structure. But all that other stuff seems to me like an ongoing project for the community and the school board to work on together.
To answer that question straight up, the scope
Right.
of the designer's job, his scope of work entailed designing the skate park, and we had, obviously, part of it was relocating the playground, and we had some feedback. So had some feedback from the community as we went through the design process, and we've had this. You and I have had this conversation about. There has been some discussion about removing the shrubs in that area, because parents would like to see their children from the roadway, from the sidewalk. So I think that's an important piece of, not only when the skate park goes in, but when the structure's removed, that's something I think is a discussion item, as you and I had.
Yeah.
But as far as everything else, it's outside the scope of their work, it's what it could look like.
But when does that discussion happen, now, or when you're getting ready to do that first? I mean,
What,
because about things like the hedge, because I think there's.
I would think that would be a discussion this evening.
Because there's a range of feeling about things.
Right. I would think minimum, you would want the discussion to be surrounded somewhere before you move forward with putting this play structure there, that we revisit this, if you don't make the decision tonight, at least revisit it if there are split feelings as to whether those shrubs should stay or not. Because I know, listening to the feedback at the community design workshops, we want you to remove the shrubs. But you know, and there are people sitting out here in the audience that say that. So.
And personally, you know, I wasn't at that meeting, but to me, I think if you remove those shrubs, people would be shocked at how exposed and noisy and, because I think what makes the upper half of Crowell Lot charming is the fact that it seems like a little oasis in the middle of downtown, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that that hedge provides a lot of sound and visual barrier, and I'm a bit puzzled, you know.
Yeah. And another aspect of that is really the use of Green Street School in terms of that open area, and so, you know, kids are kicking balls and, you know, playing with stuff that's going to roll down the street, and so that's going to be an issue for the school as well.
Yeah, and so it just seems, so I would strongly suggest that hedge stay, because I think it serves.
Can we have kind of it seems clear that we've done a lot of work on the skate part, the wheel-friendly part, and not as much work perhaps in brainstorming and thought to the other part. Can we approve half tonight? Is that allowed in this discussion? And have it come back to us? Because I would personally have a lot of concerns about removing the hedge and the balls going down and kids running after.
My opinion, if it's okay, tell me if I'm speaking out of order. This is
You're the expert.
as a landscape architect, you know, this does probably need a little bit more of a discussion than just a quick vote in courtesy of pros and cons. It almost needs to go through its own separate pros and cons exercise when I say that, because crime prevention through environmental design and other issues, some people may not like someone can run out of the car and grab a kid. Some people may not like a ball rolling into the street. Some people might not like the amount of noise that's generated from a playground with all the children giggling and you know, people cheering, or they may not like when there's a ball game going on, when you hear a ball and everyone cheering and screaming. Is a lot louder than urethane on a smooth surface. So there's some pros and cons, whether it's noise, visual abatement, sense of safety, and other factors. Those are things that you got to look at, other than it'd be great to see the playground, but then a ball rolls down and then you run out of their shoes. Or why is it so noisy now? Or why does everyone feel exposed? How can I prevent when I turn around for 1 second to grab one of my kids, the third one's running down into the street? So these are all issues that I would just recommend, from my opinion, that get assessed on a kind of an exercise or a numeric value to say these are the pros, these are the cons, and then you could go through and look at both and receive community input on what people like, what they don't like, what makes sense, but also have an educated decision on removing it. Because once you take it out, regrowing that is not going to happen in a week, a year, 10 years. So those are things to consider.
We should leave that for another time.
Yeah.
So I guess the school board, you know, I think would certainly be willing to work with a Crowell Lot committee or a subsection of the people who are behind this project to work on those issues over time as well, because I think we believe they're really important. And is that a way to, because we don't want to stall everything, because there needs to be a big discussion about the part of the park that does not have a skate park.
Right, and as landowners, I mean, you have a valued stake in this, and Yeah, and that's very important. But at the same time, those discussions probably would happen sooner than later, because the first thing is, if once this project goes forward and the funding is all in place, one of the first thing that's gonna happen is that play structure would be
Right,
moved
because
first.
in the lease, that's the first thing that happens,
Correct.
so.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that there's an understanding there that okay. I had another question, and you had mentioned it about drainage and can you just talk about the concrete and the drainage and how that works with the trees that are already there, and what the considerations there were?
Yes, the numbers of the trees are from the arborist report with footprint, and what we try to do is try to keep all the drainage where we try to keep it on site. So this would be more of a retention area, so there'd be a slight slope in the earth, and there is a low point drain inlets where the water is gathering. So you try to grab the first few inches of water here, 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 here. These were the areas that we located in these drain areas here. The only thing that would be more hardline that we couldn't control would be in the back deeper bowl, where we have more of a central line that would go to the storm drain out in the street. So we're not going to have excessive runoff and drainage, out into the slope area. Everything will try to be drained and contained on site, where we're grounded 7% or so of the surface area, and try to keep it all on site. So it's more of a green approach. Rain gardens, collection, plow swales, retention. So.
Comments from the audience? Andy?
All right, I'm just going to dive right in. I don't have my... I'm Andy Davis. I've spoken on this issue before, and I have no problem with the skate park. I have a problem with how we've gotten to this point here. One little detail, last school board meeting, February 6th, when I gave a more detailed presentation for the recite, your minutes refer to a mediator's agreement between Basic and the recite skate park. There was never, that's what your minutes say, there was never a mediator's agreement between our group and Basic. So you need to correct your minutes. You need to correct them.
It was an agreement between Barry Adams, an
Right.
appellant with the basic site
Right.
plan.
But he has nothing, yes, but it has nothing to do with us.
We will correct those minutes.
We have nothing to do with that. I want to just say this was not part of my prepared comments, which are brief, okay, Margaret. And I'm sorry I got here a few minutes late. I thought this was going to be later in your agenda. I really think that if we're going to say there was a town committee made before May of 2010, I really would like to see the minutes of who created that. Because everyone's timeline, from the basic committee, which is the one I'm holding here, to the research we've done, there was a representative town meeting in March of 2010, and in May of 2010, the lease at the Crowell Lot was adopted by the Selectboard, and the basic committee was created. So if there was a committee made before then, a town committee, it's not mentioned in any public document. If you can find it, I'd love to see it, okay? I really would.
Would you like Carol to respond to that?
Well, let me just finish my comments, and I'd love to see that. I'm just going to read a couple sentences. When the town meeting representatives were presented the lease in March of 2010, this was the very first thing that was said by the school board chair at that time, Russ Janis. One quote, one thing I want to reassure you at this point, with the hope of not extending the discussion too far, although we are open to any questions you may have, is that this is a vote not to say there shall be a skate park there. Okay, that was... Now, the comments I made for tonight. One of the myths of the skate park proposal for Crowell Lot is that there was some kind of selection process. Mr. Staley referred to this at our meeting on February 6th. In fact, the Crowell Lot was selected by individual members of the Selectboard, certainly responding to lobbying from people who wanted to build a skate park somewhere in the area, which is totally legitimate. But there wasn't a committee at that point. There was no recorded process for this offer of a public piece of property to a group of skaters, a private group of skaters. Opponents have never had an opportunity to have questions actually answered. We've listed so many questions and no one answers them. Let me just finish, and then I'm very...
Andy,
Yeah.
would you just quote me again, because you just kept
Yes.
running on with that sentence.
Mr. Staley referred to the selection process that was choosing between different sites. But there was no committee doing that. There was no public oversight, and it's not in the record.
It was a town committee.
I can provide you with notes dating from the very first meetings, including the exploratory meetings. I have all of them in my house.
And it was a committee made up, what was the name of the committee?
Committee of interested citizens who are working until the Selectboard is ready to officially take on the project.
Yeah, I was there, I remember that.
We were here in the summer of 2009.
I would love
It was
to-
announced in the newspaper. We came here and we met to help them make a decision.
I'm curious why that's never been noted in even the basic timeline on the process. So I'd love to see it. I really would love to see the the paper. Let me just finish and then I'm going to sit down. I'm not trying to get into an argument, but I'm just trying to make my point of view clear to people. Opponents have never had an opportunity to have questions actually answered about this. Just because one group of students are having a hard time getting a site does not mean that public process can be sidestepped to solve it. The design being presented to you this evening is not complete and should not be approved as a final design. There are inevitable design features that are not included in this plan, and it should not be approved on blind faith. And I'm referring to the issue we were just discussing about reconfiguring the Crowell Lot. Nobody who's on the re-site wants to chop down that hedge. To say that we're like in favor of chopping that was only came up, and I believe it might have been you, sir, who mentioned possibly removing that hedge at that walk around. The issue that was brought up was by mothers who didn't like moving the playground over in a hidden location that could not be seen from the road. The fact of the matter is that west end of the park is primo. It's the reason people like it now is for the same reason the skateboard committee likes it, because it's public, it's visible, it's accessible. And what came up was that some of the people doing the walk around didn't like the idea of being hidden from view behind that hedge. No one in our group is advocating chopping down that hedge. We like the Crowell Lot the way it is, and so to be construed that we're in favor of chopping down that hedge is turning the whole thing around on its head. The school board is the owner of this property. You are the landlord, and you cannot delegate responsibility for hosting this facility on your property. As much as you want to move this down the road, perhaps, approving this design is only the beginning of your relationship with this facility. If the town is the sponsor of this project, why not sell the property to the town? The town and BASIC have not even held to the terms of your lease. And I could get specific. How will you ensure that the facility can be removed within 90 days if the project does not work out as planned? That's in the lease. Do you have a bond or any way that that could be achieved? The idea that it's up to opponents of this siting to secure an alternative site, I think, is inappropriate. Resite is actually looking for an actual siting process where a variety of sites are weighed, and then when a decision is made, I think people will get behind it. But it has always felt like opponents of this site are kind of like playing short people while tall people play keep away above our heads. We have not been able to get questions answered, and I could list all those things, but I did that at the last meeting. So thank you for this opportunity, and I hope we can have an open forum to talk about siting this facility. Thank you.
I did just briefly, the committee that was in place prior to May of 2010 was not a town committee, just for point of clarification there. It was a citizen group, like there are many citizen groups in town, that came to the town and said, we want to find a place, can you help us find a place? But as for an official town committee, an ad hoc committee of the select board, that did not go into place until May of 2010, which you have.
Great, thank you, Carol.
If I could add, Carol, about those meetings, every single one of the meetings that exploratory group held, that whatever that group before it was officially a town committee. It was warned in the newspaper, it was warned in social media. Notes were taken, notes were retained, and anyone was welcome. They were held in accessible places that anyone could come to. They were held at the Brattleboro School Board public room. They were held at the library in that public room. They were held at Gibson Aiken Center. All these meetings were accessible and warned, even as an unofficial point.
I guess I won't add too much more to the citing process. I think there are people here who know more about it than I do, but obviously it's problematic and wouldn't be the same time. And I also noticed that this looks very nice on paper, but it exists in isolation from the neighborhood. And as a member of the neighborhood, I'd just like to make some comments. I'm not good at public speaking, so I've written some of this out. As I've listened to the plan for the skate park at the Crowell Lot, I've noticed I've become more and more concerned with problems and the losses that are posed. An organized committee with strong voices has pushed this forward for this site, and the quieter voices raising potential problems seem like naysayers. But there seems to be a growing list of serious issues. The project, even in a smaller version, is out of scale for this small space. What is proposed is not a small skating area for neighborhood and town young people, but an area-wide attraction. Many of the participants would seem to be of driving age and would be added to an already problematic traffic area. In spite of all the engineering data about decibels, skateboarding is by nature a noisy sport. That's what's exciting and fun about it. But it's also not so compatible with some of the things that have gone on in that park for years. I like the concept of a neighborhood park that's associated with a neighborhood school and the cohesiveness it provides for a community. And I'd like to speak for some who I think have not been represented. This is a densely populated area with many apartment dwellers who have no yards and who count on available green space to get out on a hot summer evening. And last but not least, I believe there's a real safety issue. I walk and drive that area every day. It's one of the worst intersections in town. I know there have been proposals to change it, but the structure of the hills and streets, I don't see any way of doing that. It's one of the worst intersections in town with blind curves on Western Avenue from both directions. Cars trying to turn left off Green Street, Union Hill cresting at a blind crosswalk, and ever-increasing traffic using Cedar Street as a cut-through, including many out-of-towners who I watch not paying attention, looking at their GPS, talking on their cell phones. And I question the wisdom of adding this level of activity to what's already going on there. It seems like an accident waiting to happen. I know it's hard to backtrack from something that has so much forward momentum, but with so many potential problems, I would ask for a delay in approval to allow for a full revisiting of the siting process and find one that fits the kind of scope and drawing power that the skate park committee has outlined, so we can have both a high-level skate park and preserve the Crowell Lot for the uses and space that it has been had for so long. Thank you.
I think it was in this room in October 2009 when I first heard about the skate park. And I have to admit, I live across the street, and I'm directly across the street. See it from my study and second floor. At that time, we were very concerned about it. And I don't know how many of you know about the history that the skate park was originally meant to be in the West River Recreation Area. And it was reported that there was a runoff problem. Well, there was no runoff problem. There was a design problem. The engineer had put the skate park in the buffer zone. That's the zone between the floodway and the floodplain. And the state said, move it. Instead of it being moved, it was removed, and I have a copy of the letter from the state Environmental Division saying, move it, not remove it. It was reported in the paper, and I have a copy of that in October 2009, that In fact, what happened was, after that, there was a meeting, and the town manager was reported as saying, we're moving from the West River area because of the runoff problem. I do have a copy of the newspaper article, Howard Weiss, I believe, wrote it. The West River's, the Crowell Lot's a good place for us to go. So that was the process. I've been following it ever since. All we're asking for is that let's look at a overall site evaluation. I don't know how many of you know, if you heard that I wasn't asked informally by a member of the basic committee to have a joint committee to do site selection, and the select board turned it down. So all that we're asking for is let's have an appropriate site selection process, including the Crowell Lot, and have them evaluated for the public to see, that's all.
I'm not on the committee. I'm doing some fundraising, and if I could, just had a couple points. First of all, I've been skating for 20 years, and this is not just for kids, it's for adults as well. So to address, I have some questions, just very quickly. Most people here skateboarding on the street and the sidewalks. As the gentleman said, skateboard wheels on concrete make just a little rushing noise. The other thing is that, let's see, I'm kind of curious about the status of and I understand the neighborhood opposition, totally. And I'm not sure what the status is on that. It seems that there is still quite a bit of opposition from the neighbors, which, again, I understand. The hedge removal, okay, as far as balls getting kicked into the street and everything or elsewhere, they won't get kicked into the park, right? I mean, there's fences around the park, or am I correct?
Into the skate park?
Yes, right. And yes, again, I understand the concerns of people about balls getting kicked into the street and little kids running out after those balls and putting themselves in harm's way. And thanks for the opportunity, by the way. And let's see, I do some fundraising, by the way, not on the committee, and but I work with them. And the only other thing is that I don't see how moving the jungle gyms and everything over prevents people from using them, just because they are not as visible from the street. So I'm just voicing, what this meeting is for. And so those are just a few things I'm wondering. And you're smiling, but that's fine. And so that's about it. Thanks for letting me talk. I gotta get out for the phone call.
Hi, I just have a quick question about if there will be a bond set aside for tree replacement in case these trees surrounding the park gradually die off, if there's been an analysis of the cost for each of the trees. And I'd also like to know what tree number 6 is that I guess is going to be eliminated right away, and how many trees will come out of the buffer zone to implement the berm structure, and I suppose a fence that's going to go on top of that, although that's very vague what's going on there. That is our only buffer zone, so I'd like to, think that would be determined before a skateboard park would go in.
So,
just out of consideration for the neighborhood.
Historically, well, the school district owns land with trees on it all over town. And historically, when a tree has been determined to be unsafe because it's reached the end of its natural life, it's been damaged in a storm, or it's fallen onto somebody's car, as has happened, the trees are removed. Now, because Crowell Lot is maintained by the Parks Department, but owned by the school district. Historically, when major tree work has had to happen, generally either the parks tree consultant or the district's tree consultant, who I believe right now is Dan Adams.
And he's the same for the town.
Same for the town. He's been the tree warden in Brattleboro for a while. If it comes to the attention that there are trees that are sickly or in need of work, generally there'll be a discussion with parks and with us, and we in the past have split the cost because it's quite costly to remove a large tree. $1,000, $1,200. So the people who've been involved in the Crowell Lot project commissioned an arborist to look at the trees and to assess the impact of the project on the trees. We asked our tree consultant, Dan Adams, what his opinion of the trees currently are, irrespective of whether there's a project coming in. And he looked at the arborist report and used his own expertise and said there's probably about 10 trees in Crowell Lot that need serious mitigation. And there's at least one that he says should be removed entirely. And so, because of the nature of this this process, we didn't think it was like, the most seemly thing to just hire DE Tree over this winter, which was what was recommended, to go in and start, taking out trees without talking with the town tree committee and making people aware of the situation. And those trees are there and are going to need attention whether or not the skate park gets built. I mean, it's just the reality. So
It's just that these trees are being directly affected by the
Right.
construction activity as well, the
Yeah.
construction activity. And their root zones are going to be compromised, so there's a good chance that they're in jeopardy. And
But
whether number 6 is being taken out, I don't think it's being taken out because it's a tree that is in bad condition of any sort. I think it's being taken out so the trucks can get in the front, because there's a very narrow line. You don't really have a lot of access there getting into the park for construction.
well, so
And I've spoken extensively with Dan Adams. I've gone to maybe 5 tree advisory committee meetings discussing just the skateboard park and how it's going to affect these trees. And that's why our group got an ISA arborist report completed for all the trees surrounding this area, so that there is a cost replacement. I'm not talking about the cost of cutting a tree down. I'm talking about the value of the tree and the value to the community that tree has.
right, and so I've seen that report, and so there's the replacement value of the trees, and so we'll say sugar maple, I believe, was around $600. So I, personally, and as a member of the school board, I think that when a tree comes down, it would be great for it to be replaced, in the park, because it's important, and whenever a large tree is removed, having opportunities to either put another tree in nearby or in a more appropriate space is
Some of
important.
these trees are 75 years old and
Right.
they're not easily replaced, and they're the
Well-
character of that park. Sorry to be.
No, but trees, but also, trees grow. So when an old tree comes down, you can plant a new tree, and
Well,
in
that's true.
75 years, the character of the park will be what it is, because it's a tree. So I'm saying, I understand it's an important issue, but I also want you to understand that, we try to manage the property where we're responsible for in a cost-effective way, in light of our mission, which is to educate the children of Brattleboro. That's our main mission. We also maintain buildings and we maintain property. And so I'm just saying to you that our past practices, if there is a tree that is, in poor health and likely to be a hazard, it gets chopped down and it's not replaced. Crowell Lot is special because it is a public park, but I would say too that, the whole process of looking at trees and caring for them and replacing them and their value in some ways is a separate issue, whether or not this project happens. Because currently, the town and the school are not budgeting to replace trees in the park. That's a separate, it's not a separate issue, it's a related issue, but it's another problem that has come up in this process. So I really feel like I can't give you a good answer, but accept the information.
Well, I've talked about it a lot with Dan, and there is a mitigation process for each tree if it is to be removed, and there's a cost associated with each of those trees. So is that taken in mind with the skateboard project, how much, if these trees are gonna start dying off, how much that's gonna cost? Because people can mitigate a tree if it's gonna be cut down or compromised by development.
That I, you know, don't have an answer. I don't have an answer.
It would be good too that if when you speak, if you could state your name, so for the record.
Les Montgomery.
Les Montgomery. Thank you.
My name is Marty Valander. I'm in disclosure, I'm the chair of the skate park committee. And I can hear, I've heard concerns about trees, and I respect them, about parking and about traffic, but for me, it comes simply, really clearly to valuing our children, the youth of our community, above some of those things. And I think putting a skate park in this location would demonstrate a tremendous supportive role of us towards our youth. And I think that by putting this here, thank you Carol, thank you Mike, and to the school board, the work you're doing is hard, but I think it's integral, I think it's necessary.
I wanted to clarify, Les, I think what you were asking is the bond, is there gonna be a bond in case a bunch of trees die based on construction?
Right.
That's, yeah, and I think we obviously need to consider that, because that's a very reasonable question. I just want to clarify, you mentioned a fence on top of the berm, and what I understood, you just said is there's gonna be a 6-foot wooden fence, and then a 3-foot berm behind that, and then the bank down to Union Hill. So just want to make sure that.
I don't know the details, it hasn't been fleshed out yet.
Well, on the design that we're looking at, that's what I just heard, is that accurate? 6-foot wooden fence and a 3-foot berm. So that's currently the plan.
Right, so there'll be trees removed to provide that amount of area.
Is it, will there be?
Will
trees be removed?
Yeah, I know one of the questions or concerns was, what was tree number 6? This is the location of tree number 6. The previous design that we had did remove these trees as the entry did extend out to the pedestrian walkway. In the concept is where we really tried to avoid all the trees shown in the arborist report out of the drip line, and also provide as much buffer with the dimensions for the root zone as possible on the single side here, and any bowl depression into the dirt away from the critical trees in the report, and to the best of our ability to demonstrate, because we might have gone through this exercise and said this is the worst thing ever. Can it be done? So let's go through the process. Let's see if it is feasible. And right now this plan will demonstrate no removal of the critical trees that were.
I think his question was about where the berm is going.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are trees going to be taken out there?
No. And the sound barrier is open for everything. As of today, it's a solid wood fence panel with berming and plants. So I'm open to help out with anything.
I'm Spencer Crisp, and I'm on the Basic Committee. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen here. I really appreciate it. And I just had a couple of comments to talk about in this really important process here. I want to say that I have to completely disagree with everything essentially that Andy has to say in the Recite Committee. The opponents, it's important to know, have had too much opportunity to voice their opinion about this. They've had ample opportunity, way too much, to the degree that it has been an abuse of public process. Where were they in 1996 when Daryl first started this, 1997, 1998, 1999, up until 2006? And then what about 2008 in Memorial Park, in 2009 in West River, and then when BASIC was created? We meet every other week. We meet every other week on Thursday as a public meeting under the public meeting law for anyone to come. And not a one of them came for years. For years, not a one of them came. The opponents were idle and missed the opportunity, and now at the 11th hour are wrongfully trying to shift their lack of due diligence to the volunteers at BASIC. Indeed, BASIC has done its due diligence. We've jumped every hurdle that's been put in front of us. We have cooperated with everything that has been asked of us, and we are all just volunteers benevolently trying to do something for the community here, for the kids, as Marty said, for not just the skateboarders, it's not just the skateboarders, it's BMX riders, it's scooters, it's rollerbladers, it's all wheel sports, wheel friendly, for the community. We're trying to do something to help Vermont, help Windham County, and help Brattleboro for the betterment of us all, out of the benevolence of our hearts. We're volunteers, we're not paid. We do this because we care about other people. A lot of people on BASIC, they don't even skateboard. They're just here to try to help for the greater good of the community. And then, we wonder why jobs and young people are moving out of the state, moving out of Windham County. It's because there's not a community spirit of inclusivity. And we're here as BASIC to have a community spirit of inclusivity, and not a not in my backyard attitude, but an open, I love you, let's celebrate kids, celebrate the youth, and bring a skate park to this town. We have worked tirelessly, done everything that was expected of us, of you, of the school board, and not been paid, spending time away from our families, from our friends, our wives, our children, our husbands, and our loved ones, night after night, thousands, not hundreds, thousands of hours. Recite has acted out of flagrant ignorance of this project. They've acted out of flagrant ignorance of our efforts and of what skateboarding is. And it is my honest hope that someday the members of Recite will say, once we've built this park, yes, I like green eggs and ham. Yes, I like them. Recite I am.
My name is Andrea Watkins. I live here at the Crowell Lot. This is my daughter, Amanda. And I'd like to point out that the play space at Crowell Lot right now is the only shitty public playground in town. And my little Vermont girl here gets very hot in the summer. And we have a small yard, as many residents of Brattleboro do. And we rely on going to this park and being able to play under the shade of the trees. I know it's proposed to move the playground equipment. It's planned to be moved out into the sun. So we're trading a shady playground that's our only one for a set of children who already rely on it. And it's being proposed that we take things away from one set of children to give it to another. I think there's other places that could be evaluated so that all the children of Brattleboro can have what they need.
My name's Scott. I'm not affiliated with this or anything. This is on a small note, I just want to point out that any other spot that a park is chosen to go to, there's going to be a group like the Recite group that's going to spring up. No matter where you go, anywhere in the country you look at that tries to build a skate park, they have to go through the same stuff with an opposition. And you say, well, there's more parks, there's more places that we can look at. And not only is that starting all over again, but that's opening the door for a whole other group to come and say, well, we don't like it here for many of the same reasons that the current Recite group doesn't like. And I just want people to think about that and just to consider that.
Madame.
I think that's exactly why you...
Excuse me, sir. Hi.
I'm Alice Charks. So I have a question for the school board.
I've been involved for the last year on a committee, a citizen committee, about painting a street mural in our neighborhood. And in order for us to get a permit from the town to do that, which we have gone through that process, in order to get the permit, one of the requirements that the town select board put to us was that we needed to survey the neighbors who lived adjacent to the mural and find out if they supported the project. We're supposed to get a clear majority from the neighbors. And we accepted that as part of our accepting because wanting to apply for the permit. The reason that we saw that as a good idea, and the reason I guess, and you'll see I'm leading of course to you guys as the question, is that it shows support. And it shows it in a very clear way. And if we try and do this street mural project, and when we survey first, and we find out that actually many people don't want it there, even though it's something that in 2 years or 3 years will be gone, different than the skatepark, we will not proceed with it, we will not do the mural, we will not do it. So the question then to the school board is, I wonder if you would consider that, asking the neighbors in the adjacent area to get a clear majority, because then it would show, if there is a clear support, then it shows, yes, there's a clear support. And if there isn't, then you know that too. Do you know what I mean?
When this project was first proposed to us, we had many public meetings. And as I recall at the time, there were some people that I recognize here who were against it, and there was a large amount of people who were for it. And what I have seen, so we had a lot of process about the question of whether or not we would engage in a lease and allow this committee to try to build a skate park. And at the time we took that vote, there were several other public processes that the project had to go through, including a development review board, which specifically asked for input from abutters. This meeting tonight, and to me, one of the real tests of whether a project is ever going to happen is about $329,000 in fundraising. So I think, we could have those years ago said, well, let's just ask everybody what they think and do a poll. And we did what we thought was a due diligence process on that question at that time. And the project has gone on. And it is my impression, and this is my personal opinion, not as a school board member, is that as, especially after the project was approved by the DRB, the strength and vocality of the people who were against it, who didn't show up to those meetings at the beginning, got stronger. And I believe that, people who live anywhere in town should have an opinion and have an interest in what happens in every piece of public ground. But, and this is, again, not a school board meeting, my personal view, but I also feel like there were many opportunities for people to be involved and to weigh in. And so now we're here. And so now putting my chair hat back on and trying to be mindful of, unless anybody has something super new to say, I would ask the board if they have any questions and wonder if there's
I have one further question. I have a further question on bonding. You talked about trees, but I know that unforeseen things always happen. Your name? Peggy Alcohol, Brattleboro resident. Unforeseen things always happen. Engineering is not perfect. Is there a bonding process to cover the costs so that the town would not pick up any unforeseen?
I have half a conversation going. Can you please ask that question again? I apologize.
Is there a general bonding for this project for unforeseen problems so that the town will not be picking up costs for this project?
This project is 100% fundraised. So this
but how about a bonding for unforeseen things, not fundraising?
That would be part. The bond would be part of the whole. A construction bond would be required of those when they. If that's the question you're asking.
Yeah, I'm asking, yes, if there will be a bond to cover unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, there would be a construction bond.
Andy.
I would just like to say that I think it's unfair to characterize this as for and against children.
No, I don't.
The town of Brattleboro is incredibly generous with programs for the children. I think to characterize it that way is unfair to the proponents. I have been to basic meetings, and maybe I didn't go as early as I should have gone, but I have spent a lot of time away from my family. I have spent a lot of my adult life working for and with children, and I take it really personally as a kind of grandstanding and demagoguery to say that this project, which is a large entertainment facility, is somehow the flag of pro-children in Brattleboro, Vermont, which has got to be one of the most pro-children, not for every single sport, but we have so many facilities and so many programs here that to characterize it that way, I think is incredibly unfair. And it reminds me of some of the inappropriate response. Anyone who has raised a question about this has felt over the internet, on social media, it has been endemic to this discussion, that people have turned it into a personal thing. People have been called all kinds of names early on in the process. And to see that continue tonight, I think is incredibly inappropriate. Thank you.
The reason I don't, sorry, Ken Schneck, Brattleboro, the reason I don't go anywhere near these arguments is because for every time that I've heard someone say that this is about the children on one side, I've actually heard it equally a number of times from the Reese side. I mean, you heard it tonight about the shade, and I'm not downplaying the importance of either of those. But to be fair, that argument is being made on both sides of the aisle. For me, and folks who know me, I'm all about process. And I just want to follow up in your great comments about due diligence. I challenge people, as I've said at the select board meetings, to show to me where it is written what a site selection process looks like. The site selection process, as mandated by the state of Vermont, has been followed to the letter. You can propose different ways of doing a site selection process, but that is something altogether different than the fact that we have followed exactly what the state of Vermont says to do. And you articulated it quite beautifully. You know, you go through the DRB, you go through the select board, you go through the school board. I just want to separate out the desire for something different than the obligation that the town has met in doing what is mandated to us to select a site for the skate park. They are two very different things. I am not in any way downplaying the desire to have a different type of process to arrive where we have already arrived, but I want to separate that out from what the state of Vermont tells us that we have to do, which we have done.
Two more comments, and then did you have something?
I just wanted to comment on Scott, I believe it is, his comment about the process of going through and selecting alternative sites. Now that was done a really long time ago, and it's really not fair to say that people who were unaware, maybe didn't even live here at the time, just because they weren't in at it that moment. We've been doing this for 2 years, considering the Crowell Lot, and I think it's unfair to just generalize about that. It was driven out of Living Memorial Park for noises, I guess, or people threatened to sue. Well, you know, anybody could do that. So it's a level playing field as far as selecting alternative sites, because everybody might have potential that might happen. So you come to Crowell Lot and you've expected that that wouldn't happen, and we've tried to go through proper channels and debate this through the select board and to no avail, and I really think that's unfair.
Behind you. Ma'am, sorry, yeah.
I'm Mary Kane. I have 3 sons. Since 1996, we arrived. Several summers, we went to 11 different skate parks in New England. If you have an enthusiast who's a rollerblader or a skateboarder, you gotta find them because they weren't here. So we had to go miles away to Ride Air Station up in Maine. We would go, or down in Massachusetts in Greenfield, or up to Woodstock. We'd find them in places where no one else would go. And so to me, even though there are concerns, and you've done a phenomenal job about airing those concerns, my personal view, I only have the children who are now in their 20s, is that we have given us the opportunity to create something for our generation currently and for the next one coming that will value that spot far greater than we can even think of at this point. And I know we have concerns about what would happen if this happens, if we take the hedges down, if we don't take them down. But in the long run, overall, I would love for us to be proud of the fact that we have this so that we can attract individuals who will utilize this to our area. And that will be broadcast in your area, in recreation, as well as regular family members, bringing people into our area for a variety throughout the time that it's open. So I would encourage you, please, to try just a little bit. Every change is difficult for us to go through, and no matter what it is, to give an idea to your children that they are worth your effort. Thank you.
I'm going to be brief. I just want to say I continue to disagree with Andy and am deeply offended at the dissemination of patently false information to gain a Machiavellian advantage. But I'm not going to get tripped up on negative energy. I want to talk and end here with something positive. And that is what we're here for, which is this man right here. This guy was in 1984 in Thrasher magazine, this magazine, the main skateboard magazine, skateboarding with Tony Hawk in his backyard. We are very fortunate to have a world-class, state-of-the-art, first-rate skate designer in our midst to bring an awesome resource to our town. This design is great. Ever since I've seen it, I've just been salivating, just been eager, just wanting to skate it with my friends, with the people we've worked hard with kids. Teach a kid how to kickflip. Teach Maddie's kids over here how to kickflip, or they probably already can because Maddie, their dad, skates. That's what I want to do. I want to just like have the camaraderie of having a place to call our own, having a place where we can bond together. Everyone's got their tennis courts and their football fields and their soccer fields, but we've had no place to go, and I have had no place to go since 1985. I was born in this town. I've never left Vermont, and I've been skateboarding since 1985. I would love to skate this park and have my own football field, so to speak. And this guy has done an amazing job. Carol's done an amazing job. All my good friends who I've grown to just know and love, David Longsmith, Barry Lane, Josh, Marty, everyone on Recite, friggin' Steve Martin here, and all you guys have done, Francine, and countless others have done an amazing job with working on this. And I just hope you'll approve it. I really hope we'll uplift the spirits of thousands of rollerbladers, skateboarders, BMX riders, and people who love to be outside in the fresh air, doing something creative, healthy, and fun, which is skateboarding and wheeled recreation. And I hope you'll approve it because I'm so thankful for him, and I'm so thankful for the state-of-the-art, wonderful design. And I thank you for your time. This has been great.
In and say one thing, because whether or not you disagree with Mr. Davis's stance on this progress, he is 100% correct about the town and how they support children and their generosity. And so don't forget that.
Oh, I completely agree
Don't
with that.
forget
The town has been great in supporting children. I wasn't talking about the town. I agree with you.
But, there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Mr. Scholes.
My question was about what, in terms of moving the play structure and what Ms. Watson just said about there being no shade there. And I'm thinking that if we're going to be looking at this design, that there's going to need to be some pretty significant trees around that play structure. So that moving the play structure, if it kills it as a resource for the entire summer, it's not a problem. So that's going to have to be part of our concern for the considerations. not coming in my mind.
May I clarify one thing? Please understand the play structure is not being moved as a structure. The current structure is going away. It is becoming pipe and lumber and sawdust. A new facility is going to be erected in someplace in the plan, okay? We still have a couple of years before we have to address the fact that the pipe and the lumber and the sawdust is going away.
That is true.
That's very true. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, this project is 100% funded by the basic group fundraising efforts, whether it be in-kind contribution, grants, capital fund drive, and they're in the $60,000 range as far as contributions go from grants and donations. This is, including the bowl, about a $350,000 project. They have to raise that money in order before the first shovel is going to go in the ground. On top of that is another $30,000 for the play structure. So nothing is going to happen tomorrow. Nothing is going to happen this summer unless there's a sugar daddy that comes down and drops the big one for us. And maybe we have to come back and have another meeting next month. But
So I'll take a few more questions of Francine.
Excuse me, I forgot. Francine Valerio, and what I just want to say is that I have talked just recently, but to the Arts Committee, well, several times, but most recently to the Arts Committee and to other groups of people who are very interested in working with the permission of the school and coming before you, etc., is working on a plan for the rest of the park so that it can be brought into the community and utilized more. The Arts Committee is very interested in doing little hockey parks. There aren't any benches or places to sit in that park, so some of us have thought of even a chess game table or the places where parents can sit and watch what's going on and enjoy the park. So I see that as a separate, I mean, that we need a committee or some groups of people from the community who want to work on that as a separate, aside from the wheel-friendly park. And I think that's very important that we work on that, and that's a way to pull in more people into it and to get ideas and where we want to go with it. But I see that as a separate issue that needs a lot of work, and I think people will get very enthused about getting involved and working on it.
Margaret, may I say one thing? May I build on what you have just said?
Certainly.
What I have noticed, please by all means, you don't have to stand for this.
May I
Thank you. What I have seen over the last several months, maybe years, is a growing adversarial situation against those, between those who want the skateboard park and those who don't. What I have seen in what you said and just in the last couple of weeks, and things that are said here tonight, so what you do say has an impact on people on the board, is that it offers perhaps another opportunity for another group of individuals to come together. You have a skate park association, skate. You know, you are diligently planning to the best of your ability a very comprehensive, hopefully safe, state-of-the-art skateboard park. You have mentioned the fact that the rest of the park perhaps has not been looked at enough in years past and could possibly use another look-see. Why not there be another committee that looks at new playground equipment, looks at buying or raising money for half-grown trees? You can do it with equipment. You can dig a huge hole in the ground and put a huge full-grown tree in there. So you provide the shade, and you're replacing one that gets chopped down with one that is practically full-grown. Look at something that I would like to see in more parks is a restroom. I have heard it raised before that this plan doesn't have a restroom. Guess what? There's not a restroom there right now. So you haven't watched it. Okay? But personally, having taken several tours of that facility, if you walk in the back of it on a hot summer's day, you know, yeah, it smells like an overflowing cesspool. Having a public toilet facility up there would not be a bad idea, but that would require yet perhaps another committee to raise funds for that. You have an opportunity to turn this not into simply a skateboard park with a little playground attached, but into a real jewel of a community park.
Yes.
So why waste the energy fighting each other and just get together and say, look, my group will design the playground, the half-grown trees, the toilet, the parking, the access to the park. My group will design the skateboard park itself, try to make it safe for the kids, assume the responsibility of teaching the young ones how to use the facility, and we end the discussion real quick. Please, go ahead.
And thank you, because that is exactly what I was feeling this last week. You're right, there are two sort of factions, but because, lots of reasons, but it needs to go ahead so that that can be as separate as you're saying. And then, really, I have a couple of people who live in that area that want to help work on this. And I really feel that this can be a bringing together and getting lots of ideas. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sure that the director of the Parks and Recreation would be more than happy to,
Yes.
offer guidance, facilities, and whatever that would be necessary.
I will take comment from someone who hasn't spoken before. Thank you.
Patty Fitzgerald, Brattleboro. And I know that was a kumbaya moment, but I'm going to go back to the process.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. You said there were ample opportunity when this was before the board. As far as I know, it was October 1st they were shown the site. The November 18th, it was discussed as the effect on Green Street School. Let's see, that was November 18th. December 3rd was something that was billed as public forum. And I have the minutes and I have the attendees. And Margaret, you were there, Mark was there, David was there, the other, Lori's gone right from that, and Jane was there. And then there was the principals, there were 5 principals and Mr. Staley, or including Mr. Staley. But there were, as far as proponents of the skate park, there were 18 of them, including Daryl. Was Daryl here?
He's gone.
Okay, but anyhow, Daryl, Joe was there, Mr. Von Smith. 18 of them, there was 2 people from the press, and there were 5 non-supporters. Carolyn and Herb were there, Kate Wiley, who owned a property on Chestnut Hill, and a couple from Guilford who spoke against it. But in the course of that meeting, it says there was much discussion about the concerns with the impact on the school, noise, traffic, changing the focus of the Crowell Lot, placement of the skate park, etc. Then it says the proponents of the park addressed those issues. So the people who wanted it answered anybody who had any opposition, and then the board was thanked numerous times for considering the lease, and the board will make its decision at the next meeting. So the only public forum I could find, and I read all your minutes, was that one on December the 3rd of '09, and obviously a whole bunch of us didn't know what was going on because it was a school board meeting, which is never covered unless you have children in school. I don't think you read to, and it isn't covered by TV, so no one got wind of it. I told Mr. Schneck, and he didn't believe me when we first had a visit in this. It was a Gold Skateboarding Day, and I said to him, I honestly did not know it was going there till I saw the sign go up. He said, I don't believe you. And I said, it is the truth. Oh, yes, you did. You emailed about that afterwards. You said to me, I don't believe you. But he didn't know there was a real Mr. Crowell either.
And then
Still don't know the history of Crowell, and I apologize, and I really appreciated going to one of the Resite meetings. I was since not allowed to get any of the communication about further meetings, even though I was there to really listen, and then was told flat out, you were not welcome at any one of these meetings. What I actually said to in the park was, wow, that's really surprising to me. I would never say to someone, now this is my name now, I would never say to someone else, I don't believe you. It was very surprising to me that someone who lived in the neighborhood at that point hadn't heard of it. I also live a block and a half away from the park, although I'm on the select board, so I heard about it. So you know, it was surprising to me, but I apologize in front of everyone if you felt that way. Still couldn't tell you the history of General Crowell, Ambassador Crowell. Again, don't know him, so apologies for that.
My name is David Longsmith. I don't skate. I've gotten to know a bunch of skaters since then. You know, I heard about this project the old-fashioned way. I read about it in the Reformer in August of 2009. I read about it in the paper in August of 2009. But the school board was considering locating the skate park in the Crowell Lot. And that's when I got involved, and that's what led me to become one of the organizers of the project. George Crowell was very interesting in one way, that he brought people to Lindenhurst, that mansion there, up on the Crowell Lot, from New York City and from the cities as a part of what became the Fresh Air Kids program. So it's really appropriate to help augment the use of that park by children for their health. And that was for Ricketts at the time, was to help them.
No, he didn't bring them to that piece of property. He brought them up by the reservoir. They had a special house.
That was also his property also, right? That was actually, and I could dig further, property that the town turned down as a potential park. Thank you for listening to all this. This has been a long process. I really appreciate you being here tonight and your commitment to this project from the beginning, and I do urge you to support it at this time.
My name is Matthew Rink. I'm not affiliated with BASIC. I'm just a member of the community. I'm a father. I'm a preschool teacher. There's one thing I know as a preschool teacher, all children are different. They all learn in different ways. They all communicate differently. Everybody's different. Nowadays, like, Brattleboro always prides itself on being such a progressive community, but times are changing. Like, when a kid turns 3, he's not getting a baseball glove like you always did, like, back in the 50s. Kids are getting skateboards now, and, like, let's go. Like Spencer was saying, inclusivity, or whatever that word was, of a community. Like, I grew up coming to high school here, and, like, I felt shunned just for having a skateboard, and, like, at that point, being a youth, I felt like I was not supported. Andy, I understand, like, I agree with Andy that Brattleboro is a great community for children. But can't we really, like, let's support all children. The kids on skateboards, the kids on scooters. Like, dude, like, bring a kid who doesn't skateboard. He might learn, she.
I'm not against skateboard.
I'm not, Andy, I support you, Andy. Yeah. I love you. I was a student of yours, like Andy.
Yeah. Get that in a minute.
And, like, Mary was saying, like, as a kid, like, we don't have skate parks here. Like, Brattleboro was trying to be such a progress. We don't even have a public skate park. People will come. We travel to skate parks. People wonder, like, they walk around in the summer, like, where are all the kids? They're traveling to other skate parks. We have a skate park in Brattleboro, people will come to it. It's going to be good on so many levels. I just hope that people who are against it will agree and just accept change as a good thing. And just give it a chance. If we, like, support this as a community, it will be successful. Just all gotta get together, man. Thank you. I'm done. I'm sorry.
My name is Rick Eisen. I want to make it absolutely clear. I'm not against the skate park in Brattleboro. There are other sites in Brattleboro that I believe are more appropriate specifically, and I will go through them. I got caught up in the acronyms. The West River area has a half acre of practice field. That's all it is. I, in fact, went to the West River Area Committee and asked them, can you spare 10,000 square feet for a skate park? They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. They just listened to me politely. But there's a half acre there where it could go. In the acronyms, I call that the West River Area Park of RAP. We would like to have it moved from the Crowell Lot Area Park, which is flat, and have flat moved to RAP. There are another area, which is the Union Station area, which the Reformer reported there was 1.3 acres of scrub down there, and that would be a good area near downtown. I call that the Union Station Area Park, or USAP, which describes me in believing that there's something logical can be derived out of this. So There's also the upper Memorial Park. The original Memorial Park site was in the lower area next to the dwellings. The upper area, which actually has restrooms, I believe, up there, and could be an area for longboarding, would be a beautiful site and readily available. My personal favorite is the one that I call Salsa. It's the soil and loam storage area. It's just opposite the high school, just off the Fairground Way there. You can drive down into it. It's about a half an acre. It's got trucks. It's flat. It has a slope. It'd be a beautiful bowl. It'd be a wonderful place for it to go. I want to make it absolutely clear I'm not against the skate park. It's only a question absolutely of where. The high school area would be wonderful. You can get down to it. You could have seating around it. And think of all the kids at the high school would have it right across the street. And that would, I'm sure a majority of the skateboarders are probably high school people. I want to make it absolutely clear. It is a question of where, not a question of whether or not there ought to be a skate park in Brattleboro. And I don't understand why the basic people are so afraid of looking at other sites. Have them evaluated against the school lot park, which I had agreed to do with Dennis Wigman until the select board said no, they wouldn't allow an informal committee to do that. That's all we're asking for. Take a look at some other sites. We are not against the skate park. Please, we'd like to have some consideration of
Mr. McIntyre, you presented a design for a skate park this evening. Is the Crowell Lot the only place this particular design can be put down?
It is the only lot that I have looked at.
I mean, you know, another 14,000 square feet someplace else, could this design be put down in that footprint?
It'd have to be assessed.
As long as it's flat ground, or?
Well, it also helps that the skate park is contextual. You don't want it in isolated, just like any other activity. You want to just take a playground and put it into a dirt lot in the corner. This style of park, where it's more of a wheel-friendly plaza, open space plaza, okay. If there's complementary amenities next to it, a lot of the people that do skate do also have kids. There is a need for other activities around it. My recommendation would be to place it where there is adjacent recreation.
All right, well, that's an answer to my question. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify and just make it very clear that BASIC actually doesn't have the power to do site selection. BASIC was specifically created to design and fundraise for a skate park in the Crowell Lot. I'm sure Andy has it. I don't have the date for that. I'm sure someone else does.
May of 2010.
There you go. But it was very specific to the Crowell Lot. So it is not within the power of BASIC to have a conversation about other sites in town. That was not how they were created. They were created specifically by the select board at that time to design and fundraise for the Crowell Lot.
Mr. Montgomery.
Yes, I'm definitely for a skateboard park. My 21-year-old son is an avid skateboarder. He's almost professional status. And I've always thought the Living Memorial Park would be the optimum place if you weigh it against basic zone criteria. It meets like 89% of it. And it has room for expansion. Now this may look huge on a scale that has been drawn here, but that little park, you get in there and you look in between those trees, it's just really not that much space. I think we ought to be thinking for the future, for various types of skating types. It's near the skating rink. It's where there's roller blading and roller derby activity in the summer. You can make that a skating complex, and it wouldn't have to compromise the ski slope. You could put it to one side. And I think it just hasn't been thought through. I think that whole site has just been dismissed prematurely because some people got their hair on the back of their neck up. Look what's happening here at this park. It's no different.
I've been at BASIC and they've talked about, well, if we don't have enough money, we'll build it without the bowl. Are they asking you to approve the whole design? Do you think you're approving the whole design, or are you approving it to be done in phases?
It's the design concept. How the building happens depends upon how they implement the contract for the building. So
The proposal that was submitted to the school board for approval was the base bid plus the bowl. So the whole thing, and as we submitted to the select board, it was with the understanding when it's put out the bid that we will put out the bowl as an alternate, and if there's funding that would cover the bowl, there would be the complete project.
How big is the park without the bowl, square footage, the skate?
Can you, without the bowl?
Roughly.
Roughly within 1,300 square feet less.
About 1,300 to 1,400 square feet less if the bowl was not included.
So we're at 10.8, I think, with the whole thing?
Just under 11, just under 11.
Under 11, okay.
Yeah.
And we're taking it down to 7, no? 9. Because Basic has said in the past that anything less than 10 they weren't real excited about. And so you'd let them construct it in 2 different time frames and so forth, or if they ever got to do the rest of it?
I think that when you're getting ready, when they're getting to the point where there's going to be an actual construction process, I would expect that they would come to the board with approval of that process, because, you know, even before the skate park comes up, there still has to be the issue of the playground. So it's I would think, a multi-step process. All right. Are you ready for?
Is our participatory audience ready for it?
Let's do it, please.
Yes.
Let's go. Give it to me straight.
So let me just say thank you for coming and for listening to each other and for putting your time and passion into this project. You know, I hope there are many other things in town that I personally wish had this kind of attention, and so thanks. It's a messy process, group work, but it's what we have. So, is there a motion?
I have a motion. I move that the Brattleboro Town School Board approve the skate park design as presented with further discussion and approval related to the relocation of the play structure, the landscaping, the portions that have not been addressed. So.
I'll second that.
So the ready.
Jane's going to read it back.
See what Jane wrote down.
See what Jane wrote down. Jane keeps us out of trouble. Without her, we'd be.
Oh, great. Okay, the Brattleboro Town School Board approves the skate park design as presented with further discussion and approval related to the relocation of the play structure and landscaping.
I would say relocation and design of the play structure, just to make it clear that it's a all-encompassing thing. And I would say that, you know, the idea of people getting together and looking at the broad swath of park and ways that this project and others can be integrated in a way that's positive for the neighborhood, I think the board, I don't know, I would strongly support that effort and would hope that we could work with the select board and the parks to have something like that happen. Is there any other discussion? Mark Trunian seconded the motion.
The only other discussion point is I've been moved by all of what I've heard at all the different meetings. And I fully agree and I enjoyed reading your comments before the select board meeting, because that's been my concern about this, that obviously people feel very strongly and have not been felt that the process has been inclusive. And I've also wondered myself personally, is this the exact right spot? But I was hopeful, and I heard some of that coming out of this, that we can draw together as a town now and move forward with this and make the best of the decision that's being going forward. It has gone through an expensive process. Personally, I thought it was a dumb idea to put in a parking garage and a dumb idea to have that rotary. And I drive on a dumb rotary all the time and I love it. And I park in the stupid parking garage and I love it. So I'm convinced that I don't know the right thing anymore for this town. And that we have to, that's why I'm saying it.
And
So we have to
yesterday,
trust.
folks, so, you know.
We have to trust the process and that a lot of people have looked at it. So I'm hopeful that some of this was good for tonight.
And I just want to encourage all the people that are looking forward to building this park to do everything you possibly can to talk with these other people and understand their concerns. Your fundraising will be much easier if you don't have such significant opposition.
Well, I was gonna say, you know, if people still desire some type of confrontational issue, run for public office. All kinds of places to vent that.
And I just have one more thing, and it's about high expectations. I think that if people have high expectations for the positiveness of things, the positiveness of the behavior of our children, the positive, high expectations for the behavior of our neighbors, and high expectations for the behavior of our community. High expectations, you know, help people be accountable and actually lead to things being better. And so my hope is that the high expectations will yield something good. So I will ask for your vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. There we go.
He's a little kid, actually.